I hope you're getting my screen and as well as my voice.
Getting sure.
Yes. So last class, just we are discussing about some information related to database servers, basically. Okay. So basically, this server is nothing but we are going to get some request to a particular server, right? It will process that respective request and it will deliver the respective response. But what is exactly server? Server, what is the major intention of server is this is the thing what it is doing basically. Okay. So now this server itself is going to vary depends upon the respective software. If you are going with some application servers, right? So majorly application servers is going to deploy your application, whatever the application which you have developed. Basically, that is the one thing. And if you're going with some database servers, so we're having some multiple database servers like Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL. So many SQL databases we're having in our current software market, basically. Okay, and if you go with any database server, so they're having some multiple databases, and within that respective multiple databases, or if you're going with for each and every database is having some multiple tables, and each table is having some rows and columns, right? And also one more important point is major intention of any database is to going to store some amount of data. Okay, major intention of any database is to store some amount of data. So whatever the data in which you have already stored in the existing databases, on top of the data you can perform some operations. So yesterday we have written so many of queries, right? Basically based upon your requirement. If you want to get only data which is related to a related to let us assume we're having some customers table, right? So customers definitely is going to fall from different regions. I doesn't require all countries which are belongs to the respective customers. Sorry, all customers belong to all countries, but I required only the customers which is belongs to only for India or maybe only for Germany. So then you need to write some weird condition. So like that we discussed so many of inbuilt queries, right? So on top of the data, so means by using this SQL we are playing with the data based upon your requirement. Whatever the requirement, based upon your requirement we can gather the respective data here. That is the thing which we discussed on yesterday, basically. Okay. uh, I think these things will discuss, right? Anything discuss? That's it, right? Basically. Basically we're discussing about SQL. That is nothing but SQL stands for, as I mentioned you on yesterday, structured query language. Means basically initially I have mentioned about we are having some different types of data. Mean structured, semi-structured and unstructured. If you're going with a structured, right? So this tables information, if you observe within the tables we're having some rows and columns format, right? So this is nothing but what is exactly structured data, right? There is nothing but where SQL falls under structured query language. Means already we're having some input structure is there. If you want to play with this respect to structure of the data, so we need to go with a SQL programming or SQL language. What I mean to say, you know what is exactly SQL, where SQL all falls under. So now then we're having some SQL versus Azure SQL. Okay, so in SQL we are having if you are having some any data loss, right? Let us assume we're having some we are not able to find some rows or maybe some records for a particular table, right? So Microsoft itself is not responsible. Means if you're going with MySQL, let us assume if you're going with MySQL, if you type some MySQL, instead of MySQL Workbench, we call it MySQL software. Sorry, we're having some Microsoft SQL Server. This is also one of the database server. Here I mentioned Oracle MySQL, right? So like that, Microsoft SQL Server is from Microsoft basically. Okay. So this is also same thing. You can download this specific software and you can install in your respective laptops basically. Okay. So let us assume you are utilizing Microsoft SQL Server in your respective laptops. I mean, simply we can say that it is not in cloud. Okay, so here you need to understand two differences. It can be any software, whatever the software that can be utilized in your laptop. The same software or the same service even we can configure inside of Azure cloud as well. Okay, that is a important point basically. So let us assume you have installed this Microsoft SQL Server in your respective laptop. Okay, so even in your respective laptop also you're having huge amount of data which is already stored in this Microsoft SQL Server databases, right? And you can play with that respective data by using different queries basically, right? Let us assume you have lost some amount of data, maybe some amount of records, let us assume. Okay, so for that Microsoft is not responsible even though it is a product from Microsoft basically, because we are not going with the paid version. And around we can store 60 GB 80 GB of amount of data in Microsoft SQL Server basically. Input storage they already given. Okay, it depends upon your RAM or your configurations of your respective laptop basically. Okay, but if you're going with some Azure SQL, right? So what this Azure SQL is doing basically, or Azure Microsoft SQL Server or Azure SQL, it can be if you are going with the as a service within this Azure cloud computing platform, right? So if you are utilizing this respective service, if you are losing some amount of data, or if you are not able to retrieve some amount of data, right? So that then Microsoft is responsible because we are storing the data on Azure cloud computing servers or Microsoft servers basically. The data itself we are storing on Microsoft servers, which is Microsoft is responsible. So they are responsible to retrieve the data from this respective servers, even though if you are losing some amount of data basically. What that is my intention, what I mean to say, there is a difference between your normal SQL, whatever the SQL which you are utilizing in your respective laptops, and the same SQL in which you are using within the Azure cloud computing platform. Okay, so let us summarize that important point. In SQL, we are having any data loss, number of records, or we can say that number of rows. Microsoft is responsible, but in Azure SQL, even though if we lose the data, a separate copy of data is available at Azure servers. So is this point is clear? Any doubts in this point? So if you're not getting some concept whenever I'm teaching, right? So you can feel free to ask me at that point of time. No need to wait till the concept is done, basically. Okay, if you're not getting some point or some statement or maybe some concept while explaining, right? Not getting something, let me know immediately. So I will
Sure.
going to
Yes.
explain immediately. Sorry.
Yeah. What is the link between SQL and Microsoft? First line. I didn't get
Which
it.
one?
First line. In SQL, we having any data
Mm-hmm.
loss.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is not responsible.
So here SQL means you can go with a Microsoft SQL Server otherwise. Is this fine now?
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Basically, Microsoft SQL Server is a one of the database server.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we will create some SQL databases inside of Azure Cloud Computing platform. Okay. So means first of all we need to create some resource group, right? So after that we need to create some SQL databases. So within these things, so we will create all these things. First log into portal.azure.com. Go with resource group. So let us try to create some resource group, maybe some next tags. Next we can create. Finally click on create. So then we need to create SQL server or some SQL databases inside of this respect to Azure Cloud. That is SQL databases. Go with. Okay, type some SQL databases. Click on create SQL database. Select the resource group. What are the resource group which I have created already? So here this database name, it should be unique. Whatever the name which you are providing, so that database name itself, it should be unique here basically. Okay, so maybe I'm giving some abcdsf something. Is it available? It is available. Let us assume maybe some abc. It may not be available. It is also available. Maybe some dsf, dsf db1. It is available. So sometimes whatever the name which you are providing here, it is not available because that database name it is taken by another person or another whoever utilizing that respect to Azure Cloud for practice purpose, somebody, right? So definitely n number of users is going to practice Azure Cloud Computing Platform, right? So that is the reason it should be database name itself, it should be a unique. Okay, so you can give maybe some dsf db1 something like that. It can be any name. Okay, but it should be unique. So you need to select this server, otherwise you can, I think we don't have any servers. So click on create new. So this server name, some server name you can provide, maybe some dsf server 1 server some shipment under servers. So it is checking. So serial name is available. Okay, fine. Right, so location, you can change the location if you want basically. So you can provide respect to login and password. So if you want to authenticate some SQL databases or SQL server, right? So we need to provide some username and password basically. So we already given some server name and some location. So then you can go with some login. Maybe I can provide some DSF login one and password, maybe some, so like this, just I'm providing. Okay, so this is password. Okay, so then we need to click on okay. So here if you observe this SQL database server, okay, it is one of the database server here, like Oracle, MySQL, like Azure is providing some SQL database server. Okay, so which is major intention is it is also going to store the data. Okay, but we are creating inside of Azure cloud. So this is nothing but one type of service basically. So resource group is one service, right? Virtual network, Linux machines. So this is one service. So like SQL database server is one service which is inside of Azure cloud computing platform. Click on OK. So here whatever the name which are given, that is we have given DSF server one, right? So even we can store this one here, server name DS, something like this. Okay, this one no, compute plus storage. Click on it. General purpose, computer hardware. So previously these things we don't have. This say money, V codes, data size. These things we don't have. I think they have added recently, and even this one also we don't have. This I think it is a square, right? Sorry, it is rectangle, I think. So this one it is also we don't have basically. This is the new features which they have added. So basically we're having service type and computer type. Compute type we have it. That's it. Think they have removed previously. We're having some basic as well. Computer type. Now they have removed that one also. Not this one. Computer service types. Select the hardware combination based on your workload requirements, availability of compute optimized or memory optimized. And okay, now they are giving storage as well. Previously we don't have. What is the storage? Gen 5. Gen 5, 80 crore, 408, 72. Okay. So based upon this, they're going to charge it, say up to 50% of license. If you already have, you need to provide if you don't have any license. Would you like to make the database zone redundant? Okay, click on apply. Select locally. So next, networking. Select public endpoint. Select yes, yes. Connection policy default. So next, security. Next, additional settings. So here, as I mentioned you, this every database is having some amount of tables, right? And each table is having some number of rows and records. I mean, number of rows and columns. Basically, each and every table is having some columns and as well as rows. I mean, as we discussed on yesterday, right? So basically, we require some amount of data, right? So here I am taking some sample data which is going to provide by Microsoft Azure basically. Okay. Otherwise, if you're having some already we're having some data, right? You can take that respect to backup if you're already having some data basically. Okay. So basically, if you observe these companies, what these companies is going to do, if they're trying to adopt some cloud computing platform, right? So first of all, the company is already having some application which is already having huge amount of data. First of all, they need to migrate their existing data to the Azure cloud computing platform. So they can go with some backup option. We need to create some backup as well. So for that, we need to read this complete documentation which is provided by Microsoft. But currently we're going with some sample which is provided by Microsoft, some sample data. I mean, some sample database. Within that database, they're having some tables. Inbuilt tables will be there. So on that perspective, I mean, each and every table is having some rows and columns as well. Okay. Next tags. Next review and create. Finally, click on create. Actually, they have changed somewhat. We will check it. Okay. Here, you need to observe one thing is what we're doing is we are creating some Azure SQL as a service, right? By using some SQL database options within this Azure Cloud Search, and we are taking some sample database from the Microsoft itself, basically. Right? Just it is creating uh, some database server is creating basically. Okay, so Azure SQL server or SQL server database server it is creating in the Azure cloud computing platform itself. Okay, so any doubts, any of you up to here? Your voice is breaking. Yes.
So SQL stores only in table format in
Yes.
databases,
Yes. Yes.
only structured data.
Only structured data.
Okay.
So here what we have done is basically we are creating some database like this. Maybe customers is one database, right? Or otherwise here if you we can create actually the thing is yesterday if you observe this database server, within this database we can create n number of databases, right? So instead of database we're having some n number of tables. Here customer is one table, address is one table, orders is one table, transaction is one table. So this sample data we already created inside of Azure cloud. Okay, but we have created, that's it. We are not able to view that specific data. How can we use that specific data is by it is possible whenever if you're having some MySQL, some database server software is available in your local system or in your local laptops. Okay, some data is created, some data is we are trying to create some database or some database which is having some already inbuilt tables information is we are trying to create inside of Azure cloud. We are trying to create, that's it. But if you want to view, so yesterday we have typed some service stock from customers, right? So if you observe within that respective customers we're having some 91 rows and it is having some 5 to 6 columns is there. So where we are viewing that data is already available in their own website servers. If you observe yesterday we have discovered some 3sqls.com or dot in some website, right? So that already they have created some data in their servers. So just we are viewing that data, that's it. Okay, we did not created any data basically. But here what we are doing is we have created data in Azure cloud service. Within this Azure SQL server we are trying to create some data. Now if you want to view that data, we require some database software, right? So that database software is nothing but we can go with any database software. Not only it can be Oracle or MySQL, any database we can go with any database software. But here we have created inside of Azure cloud, right? Nothing but we have created some Azure SQL server data or Azure SQL server database we have created with some sample data. If you want to view, we require some software, right? So that softwares I'm going with some Microsoft SQL server itself I'm going with basically. Okay, nothing but SSMS. So this is nothing but SSMS. It is nothing but SQL Server Management Studio. Means what is the intention of this software? It is also from Microsoft only. What is the intention of this respective software is, if let us assume you have created some databases within the database we're having some tables as well. Otherwise simply we can assume that we have created some databases. So currently we have created some database inside of the Azure cloud, right? Or you're already having some backup of data. Some data is there which is a backup. Some data is there. Okay, now you want to view or you want to view the data, or you want to visualize the data, or you want to know what is the data, or what are the tables which is available inside of that respective database. So these things if you want to know, we require, first of all we require some software. That software is nothing but SSMS, nothing but SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so you can import that respective data. What are the data which is already, it can be some Azure cloud, or you're already having some data in your respective local systems or local laptops. That data you can dump to this SQL Server Management Studio. If you observe, while creating some SQL Server databases inside of Azure Cloud Computing Platform, we already given some database authentications, right? So we have given some username and password, and we have created some server with some name. All these things we already given, right? So that things we need to provide in this respective software, SQL Server Management Studio, basically. Okay, so here I already first of all we require this software. Go to this respective site, you can download SQL Server. Okay, so just you can download. It is very simple to install, nothing complex. So just try to install it. If you're facing some errors, let me know. Okay, so that you can aware. So I already having this software, basically Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So just click on open. So initial loading, it will take some amount of time, basically. Okay, this is the SQL database which we have created. Resource group and what is the server name, right? And we have given some uh, username and password as well, right? That is. So these things only we need to configure once this SQL Server Management Studio is open. So here it is open now, basically. Okay, it is asking for authentication. Okay, so server type, nothing but database. We have created some database in here, right? Server name. What is the server name here? Basically, this is the server name. Just copy this one, paste it here. So SQL Server authentication, right? SQL Server authentication. Login. What is the login? So this is the login. This is the login, right? So here, if you remember, whenever while creating these SQL databases inside of Azure cloud, so we have provided some username and password. Same thing we need to provide here, basically. Okay, click on connect. New firewall rule. Your client IP address does not have access to the server. Sign in to an Azure code. So this they have changed so much of things. Okay, so it is a firewall security. Basically, they are trying to authenticate here. But previous clauses, just whenever if you click on connect, it is going to connect automatically. But because of these security concerns, now they are asking Azure account as well. Previously, we don't have, basically. Okay, so click on sign in. Click on OK. So much of authentication. What is the problem? Already given, right? Firewall rule. Add my client IP address. Click on OK. Your client IP address does not have access to server. Sign into the Azure account. Create a new firewall rule to enable the access. Okay, I have given the sign in. Cancel. Click on connect. I think we will going to get some error if it is taking this much amount of time. Fail to connect server. Cannot open server DSF server on request by are having 192 168, but where we're getting 223. Let me check it once again, otherwise I need to do R&D, because they have added the firewall. That is the component was unable to authenticate. I think it will not authenticate. Yes, finally got it. Okay, previously here we don't have firewall concept here, because currently what they're doing is they're integrating all these services inside of Azure cloud, right? So much of new features, new enhancements is going on the existing Azure cloud product basically. Okay, so previously whenever if you're providing the server name, username and password, it was directly able to log in. Now they're authenticating with your Azure cloud account as well. So that is a new feature they have added. On top of that, they're checking your IP address, these all these things. Whether you are, simply we can say that whether you're a hacker or you're normal user or hacker, these all these things they're checking. That is a thing. Okay. Maybe some breaches happened from Microsoft. Maybe that is the reason they are checking all these things. Okay, forget about that. So here already we have given some database name. If you observe, while creating some SQL databases inside of Azure cloud account, we have given some ds of db1, right? So this is the same thing here, nothing here. Cannot open ds of server request. Why? Okay, oh, even though we're getting some errors at this point of time, currently it is working. Okay, but basically we need to authenticate firewall as well. Okay, remember that. So we already created some database name with the name as a ts of db1, if you remember, right? So within this database, as I mentioned, you are having some tables. So these are the tables, these are the n number of tables we're having. Okay, so just I want to open this sales customers data. So just go with select top 1000 rows. Otherwise, go with where is new query? New query. Click on new query. Okay, select star rem sales lt dot customer, right? So just click on execute or F5, type F5. So total number of rows is 847, right? So these are the column names: customer ID, name style, title, first name, middle name, last name, suffix, company name, something. These things here basically. Okay. So this is a dummy data. Okay, which is as you know, we have taken some sample data within the Azure cloud, right? This is the dummy data basically. So for practice purpose only. So you can go with uh, whatever the commands which I have practiced on yesterday. Select count star from. So 847, right? If you want to provide, you can provide some name as number of records. Type F5. So here column name is number of records. You can give some where condition. if you want. Maybe select start from maybe some where first name equal to some name, and just I'm copying. Click on execute. Okay. So you need to aware that basically the sample data we have created inside Azure Cloud as a service as a SQL databases or Azure SQL Server we have created already, right? So that data we are viewing, right, or we are visualizing in SQL Server Management Studio by providing the respect to server name and respect to username and password of that respect to server. I mean, this data is already available in Azure Microsoft SQL servers, or we can say that Azure Cloud Server. Simply, we can assume it as. Okay, so that data we are viewing by using a interface called as a SQL Server Management Studio. So while once if you open this specific tool, we need to provide the respect to server name. What is server name which I have given in the SQL databases in Azure Cloud Platform, and the respect to username password. Okay, and what are the comments or what are the SQL queries which I practiced on yesterday? The same things it is going to apply here as well. Nothing different. So you have got some awareness. Any doubts here? Any of you?
Shiva, I have one doubt.
Your voice is low somewhat.
Okay, I have one doubt.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a data like if you think like our back statement is there now from 12 for 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we discussed for top three we can visible. For
Top.
that first top three,
Mm.
January, February. If you go
Mm.
that in the middle, in between middle like June, July, what is the
Mm.
comment to use?
Top three means first you're going to get.
No, actually we have a 12 months in a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we discussed top three means January, February, like how many data is there now? I want to visible the data in between the year, like June and July.
So that is the reason if you log into any, what is the net banking you have basically?
Andhra Bank.
Andhra Bank, right? So if you are going with some Andhra Bank, maybe some app or maybe some website, so whenever if you want to view your statement, they are giving multiple options. If you observe, right? So if you want to get at least 1 year data, so you need to select the drop down as a 1 year. Or if you want to get some June to July data, you need to provide the custom dates.
Yes,
So
yes.
have you seen that option?
Yeah, I seen that.
Yes, so whatever the date you are giving in the front end, and once if you click on the submit or maybe some OK button, right? So that query we are going to get it here basically. Okay, so here they are having a inbuilt date time. I think. Give me 1 minute. I am also not expert in this one. Okay, date time query in. So like this.
Okay, fine.
Okay, you are giving some date time range, right? Maybe some June 1st to this is the June 1st, okay? And this is July 31st, something like this, okay?
Okay, okay,
You
fine.
got some idea now?
Yeah, I got some idea.
So like this they're going to provide. So here this date time, right? So date time is nothing but a column name. First of all, here you need to have some column
Yes.
name as a date time. See here they have given some modified date, right? So here whenever if you are withdraw some money from your ATM, or maybe if you are transferred some amount of money to some user, right? They're maintaining some transaction if you remember. So the
Yes, I.
transaction for each and every transaction they're going to maintain some date. Based upon that they're going to retrieve your data. So as you mentioned you that you need to get some 1 year of data, right? 1 year of data means so 12 months of data, right? For of that specific year. So you
Yes,
need
yes.
to write some programming. So let us assume you have this is your data. Let us assume this is your data, right? So we need to write some Java or maybe some Python program where we need to write this complete data, I mean 840 row 847 rows to a PDF by using some different vendors. If you're going with the Java, because I know some Java, I'm working as a Java developer. So you can go with if I want to write in some Excel, right? You can go with Apache Py, which is a some third party software from Apache organization. So we need to integrate this software with your Java program. Okay, so much of things is required basically. Okay, so even if you observe whether I don't have whether that future is available in Andhra Bank or not, but if you're going with some Axis Bank, ICICI, if you're going with these banking HDFC, right? So they will ask you the format. So whether you want to download in PDF or maybe some CSV or maybe some Excel. So that 12 months amount of data, 12 months of your bank statement, it will be available in any of these formats. It can be some PDF file or it can be some CSV or it can be some Excel file as well. So based that programming these things we need to do basically. You got some idea now?
Yes, sure. Thank you, sir.
But that data is available in database itself. So you need to retrieve this data and you need to store the data. Retrieving, storing, it should be happen by using some programming language. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, just I will explain you one more thing. Okay, so here, whenever if you're providing some, not only this internet banking, if you go with any bank, okay, whenever if you're providing some username and password, if you remember, I have given some overview about web application architecture. What is the web application I have given you, right? If you remember, initial days, basically, I have given some web application, basically. If you remember, architecture I have given. So whenever if you're giving some username and password, whenever if you click on the login, right? First of all, it need to authenticate these types of tables. It will check your whatever the password which you have created. I mean, basically, we need to first of all we need to create an account, right? First time user means first of all you need to register as an user. You need to provide some your mobile ID, which is these all these things which is provided by your respective bank. That is assume I don't have account in Andhra Bank, right? You are a first user. I mean, you are a new user to the Andhra Bank. So first of all, you are directly not able to create some account within this respective web application or app. First of all, you need to verify your Aadhaar card or maybe some voter ID. These things they need to authenticate. They will provide some code. These all these things. Then only you are able to log into your their net banking, basically, right? So whenever if you're clicking on the new user, first they will trying to insert as a new user here. So basically, if you go with Axis Bank, they're having some millions of customers is there. We are one of the customer. They're going to provide some username and password. So once if you created some account, whenever if you're trying to log in, right? So it will check this login ID and password into this respective table, whether it is matching or not. You got some idea now, basically. If
Yes,
you
sure.
if you aware about that web application which I discussed, initial process maybe around I don't know whenever I have
In
given to you.
availability set, we discussed like web application.
Yes. So if you aware that concept, visualizing of this concept is easy for you. Okay. But I hope you have got some idea what is
Yes,
going
yes.
on at backend. So you can play with that respect to queries here basically. Okay. So just check it from your end. Even we can create some multiple users as well. Currently here we have created only one user. So if you're having some two databases, you can create some multiple users or multiple databases. So here currently if you observe, we have created only one database, I mean ds of db1. So like that you can create a one more database, so within this SQL databases. Okay, so that thing also we can discuss on tomorrow one more time. So these things we will discuss one more time. So let us assume I have created one more database or one more login. So here I have given some DSF. If you observe here, DSF login 1, right? You can go with some DSF login 2 or maybe some DSF login 3. We can create some multiple users for a particular database. So these things we can discuss. Maybe it will take some 15 to 20 minutes of time on tomorrow, so that we are going to complete this SQL databases. Then we will discuss a small concept, which is a small concept. That thing we will discuss tomorrow. Okay, so that's all for today.